One of the prominent conversations about Crimson Desert right now is that the story will make or break the game, given all that the developers have already shown us is true. This conversation is really a result of the fear of the hype building inside those who make this statement. They are scared to be excited and need something to latch onto to keep them grounded, and I get it. After what a lot of developers have done to us gamers, promising the world and failing, they are right to guard their hearts and seek refuge in skepticism. Now, focusing on the skepticism, you'll find that one of the first concerns was there's no way all those systems and gameplay they are showing are real. But since Pearl Abyss released those 3-feature overviews, and with more news coming out about the game, we all kind of believe this thing is real now. So only the story remains doubtful to some, which is why I am here today to help clear those doubts with a, I wouldn't say unique, more like different perspective. Now, I warn you, in conquering this doubt about the story, know that it might seem like I am veering off topic, but rest assured that I am arriving at an important point. So, what does a story mean to you? Pause and really think about it. We all have our own ideas of what a story is, let alone a good story, but if you are like most people, you probably recall your favorite movie, TV show, or narrative-heavy video game. And if you're a student of the arts, you probably thought about well-structured dialogues, plots, and subplots, and how a story should have an intriguing character or characters that keep you glued to your seat and your controller fixed to your hand. If these were your thoughts, then you are right in the conventional sense of what a story is. But there is another kind of story. It is mostly mundane and bland and spans many seasons. It goes on forever and never stops until it finally does, usually in a dramatic end. This is the story that we all live and lead every day, a story that is likely never going to be uttered by a narrator's lips or be formed at the tip of a writer's pen, but it exists all the same. These kinds of stories can also be found in video games. It exists in the scripted life of the NPCs in your favorite games, in the lived-in world around them, and in your game character when you, as the player, decide to slow down. By slowing down, I mean when you decide to take a break from the main story and interact with every mechanic the game has to offer. And I think it is in this slowing down that Crimson Desert looks like it will shine. And if it gets this right, which to me it has from what I have seen so far, then that whole skepticism about the story will not matter. So, what are these types of stories found when players slow down? And how are they so important in games? Sometimes some of the NPCs in a game get lucky and are noticed by the narrator for a short period, where their life is wrapped up in the grand adventure of our protagonists. Some might get saved by them from the jaws of a monster and are quickly forgotten, but most NPC interactions with our hero usually mean death for them or a great tragedy. It is only on occasion that an NPC's interaction with the hero of the story leads to them having a favorable outcome. Now, these types of NPCs are the special ones. They have a name and get to share important moments in the story with our hero or anti-hero. Moments that are worthy of a cutscene, special lines, and animations. Some might even be important enough to cause the protagonist to have a character arc, leaving their mark on the hero's adventure. These types of NPCs usually have their moments in the sun before they are sacrificed by the writers, forgotten as we ride on into the next quest area, village, or town. Then there are those that you meet in passing whose lives, despite being video game characters, are eerily similar to ours. You see them in Red Dead 2 and every medieval game as you ride into town. They go about their business, gathering to hear gossip, eating, and drinking in bars, inns, and taverns. They are the dancers in some of the clubs in Cyberpunk, blowing off steam, probably after a stressful day of surviving another day in the city. The drivers you'll never meet in every game that has ever existed, each living their own lives and having a destination on their minds as they slowly move through the traffic you never respect. These NPCs don't have names. The narrator or writer groups them as people, villagers, town folk, or city members. They do not partake of your character's grand adventure and are there to be fiddled with when maybe a villain one day decides to flex and eliminate something like 95% of the population, like in Fallout 4. But do you know that just as the writers ignore these unimportant NPC stories and even forget the special ones when their importance expires, the writers also forget you, the protagonist, for a while in between your grand odyssey. Even you, the hero, like the epics you've read, have some of the feats you achieve in your gaming journey summarized as just adventure, no matter how impressive, just because they are somewhat inconsequential to the main story, which the writer believes is most important. The part summarized as adventure in your gameplay journey is the period you decide to slow down and fully interact with every mechanic the game has to offer. And contrary to what people think, it is what you are able to do during this period of gaming when the writer forgets about the hero that determines if you've got a good or a great game in your hands, not the main story itself. You don't agree? All right, let me show you. Obviously, it goes without saying that I am referring to open world games here because linear narrative games, similar to The Last of Us, do not give players significant side activities to do. You are mostly barreling towards the next objective. So the point I'm trying to make does not apply to those kinds of games. All right, having clarified that, think about the open world games that gained critical acclaim, and you'll find that there was more writing on them than their main story. The Witcher 3 had the contract system that fit perfectly into the world and the alchemy and bestiary systems you had to learn, especially in the hardest difficulty if you wanted to truly feel like a Witcher. Red Dead 2 had realistic NPC interactions with the greeting mechanics. It also had the horse taming system, the wanted system, the bounty system, and the jail system. Most of all were the realistic animations and graphics. Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, had the ability to construct anything you could imagine, while Ghost of Tsushima had the unique wind system and the fox and bird guide thing. Now, look at the systems Crimson Desert has. You can even knock off the goods in the basket of a merchant and then choose to steal them. Bear in mind also that the games I mentioned before didn't have all this variety in combat and didn't have as many unique bosses to fight as you'll get to fight in Crimson Desert. They also didn't have 2 additional playable characters to play as, both with different movesets from the main character and unique abilities and weapons. There are rumors from the Korean creators camp who have more access to the game that you can attach certain things to your own personal ship and sail the seas to hunt sea monsters. Then there are the various mounts you can tame in this game and the ability to copy your enemies' moves. All these activities are enough for your hero to get lost in his adventure in this world for several hours and occasionally return to the writer's gaze for a few periods at a time. So, aside from the various systems in the games I use in comparison to Crimson Desert, these games and their types have main stories that are clearly told through heavy dialogue between characters in cutscenes or in real time. And even though some of them lack good framing and are delivered through a lot of exposition for some of the less talented or well-written games, like the latest Ubisoft games, these main stories have clarity nonetheless and do not require a lot of reading of game items to understand. The goal of your hero is clear. I'm doing all this to find my daughter, to save my people, to help the gang, to get revenge for my clan. And in between achieving this goal, you wander away from the writer's focus and go on to gamble, to fish, to hunt, cook, paint, and sometimes to wander off the beaten path for a chance to find a treasure or unique trouble in unwanted forests and dark alleys. Other times, you stop to help those who call to you on the road or finish them off as they try to mug you for your possessions. These activities and NPCs you randomly encounter do not, for most games, add anything to the main story, but they serve a purpose that, dare I say, is even more important than the main story the writer would like you to care about. They make the world real. They make you want to get lost for hours away from the next objective and discover all that the world has to offer, so that when you come back to the main story, you feel complete fulfillment and immersion and are bought into killing that night lord or monster that is blocking your quest to rescue your daughter or to save your village. These are what people expect from Crimson Desert, and we can already tell they exist from the synopsis given of the game and from the random encounters that can spiral into bigger stories. We know Cliff was killed, but somehow survived, and that his people, the Greymanes, are now scattered, and his mission is to reunite them and defeat the Black Bears. But while doing so, he will find that there are evil entities that threaten the safety of the people with their greed. And far more than that, in the sky above is a more looming threat that could destroy the entire world if not dealt with. In addition to that, we saw how a random encounter of Cliff rescuing a man from a fire led to him rescuing another from his kidnappers, which then led to him meeting with a goblin who had his own agenda, an agenda that finally led to defeating a boss. It's safe to say there will be many more encounters like this if they are willing to show us that one. So those who worry about the story shouldn't anymore. Besides, the synopsis of Crimson Desert already seems far more interesting than the cookie cutter story of Ghost of Tsushima, and that game was critically acclaimed. Even when the open world was very boring with not much to do, and the little you could do became very repetitive quickly. You had to forget about the world to finish the game and just focus on the main story, which was all right. It is already without an argument that Crimson Desert's world will be better. And if that's not enough, we have seen that it has better random encounters. And if that isn't enough, we have also seen that it has a higher stake main story than that of Ghost. So for those worried about the main story, I ask, will you be satisfied if it is better than Ghost of Tsushima? If yes, I've succeeded in conquering your doubts. If not, let's continue. So we all know that it is possible for a game's main story to drag it down, regardless of the good mechanics the game may have. We saw it in games like Assassin's Creed Shadows. In that game, you find that as you wander outside of the main story, you feel less miserable. You might even enjoy the combat with the grunts and things like the parkour animations, or maybe some of the impressive technical details the devs carefully crafted in the game. But as soon as you are dragged into a cutscene, that immersion that was slowly building dissipates, and you are fully aware again that you are in a game. Another thing that can let players or our hero down in games like these is their underwhelming boss combats. By the time you know it, you'll start to rush through that adventure, which is supposed to draw you in, and that's if you even decide to participate at all. And who can blame you if you know there's nothing sweet waiting for you at the bottom of the bottle? You might as well chuck it all in your mouth at once and be done with the bitter taste. That's what a bad story does to a game with a decent open world. So the automatic question is, how do we know the main story of Crimson Desert won't be like this? Well, the automatic answer is we have already seen the quality of some of the cutscenes of the game and know that they are almost, if not, on the level of Red Dead 2. And that is a good sign, because one of the first signs of unserious devs making a bad story is in the quality of its cutscenes, and Crimson Desert has passed that with flying colors. My only complaint in this aspect is the lip syncing, and we know that is because the developers do not speak English, making it hard for them to get it right, but we can see some parts look good. If all these points do not do it for you, then I will play my trump card, and what I term the obscure narrative games. The games where you have to look up dedicated YouTube creators to know there's even a main story hidden amidst the layers of boss fights. These are the games where the main stories have no narrators, and you see the writer occasionally show up in one-way dialogues, if you can even call it that. In situations like when you're about to fight a special boss that matters to the hidden main story. In these kinds of games, the mundane parts where the writer forgets the hero blend seamlessly with his main epic adventure, which he has no clue about. As you wander around the world, hoping to come across something interesting, you might find yourself in the hall of a boss who is fundamental to the story. Every grunt you fight and every cave you enter moves you closer to the main story. You cannot truly chill. The writer sprinkles clues of the world, characters, and the hero's goals in the lore of his weapons, armor pieces, talismans, spells, and even game items like keys. And in cryptic dialogues with lost warriors who are found in hidden corners of the game world. Why does the writer do this? You might want to ask. Well, because the writer knows the story doesn't matter? Not really. He knows you, the hero, came to this world for one purpose only, and that's to slay towering fantastical beings and dragons. To take in the mystifying beauty of what is an ancient and forgotten world, and to dominate it and bring it to heel. But the strange thing is that gamers accept this. We accept a game where you just roam about and might not hear a single word for like 10 hours of game time. where we don't even know why our hero is doing what they are doing most of the time, but don't complain about how the story is not clear, nor make grand statements like the story of a game is really important to enjoy it, like a lot are saying now with Crimson Desert. Same people who praise Elden Ring as a masterpiece. And I get it. Crimson Desert is closer to The Witcher 3 than it is to Elden Ring. Not in terms of story structure though, don't get me wrong, Pearl Abyss has made that perfectly clear, but in terms of how alive the world seems. And maybe these concerned gamers can also make an argument that games that feature storytelling through cutscenes must have a good story worth interrupting gameplay for. But the thing is, from what we've seen of Crimson Desert so far, it looks like a rare game that is a mix of Elden Ring and those cutscene heavy narrative games where it's like you can just decide to leave the main story and play it like you play Elden Ring. And this game so far looks even more mechanically demanding than Elden Ring, with more intense combat with bosses and possessing the boss's power after victory. You are also not waiting to dodge and parry, instead you are actively fighting them. So even if Crimson Desert has a bad story, which I don't think it does, it can still be played like Elden Ring by just fighting randoms and bosses. The only edge Elden Ring has over it that I can think of is the sheer amount of builds and classes you can play as, which Crimson Desert kind of mitigates with its 3 playable characters, but it edges Elden Ring in terms of the number of mounts you can ride. I mean, you can literally ride different types of dragons. It also has a clear narrative you can understand without going to some autistic YouTuber. I say this with love, by the way. So I guess this should be enough to convince you to let the hype flow through your veins. They've also shown us more unique things and bosses than we've ever seen in any game before, and I'm willing to bet there are a lot more to come. So I get the whole rhetoric about how the story has to be good to make it great, but I think history has already shown us that games with incredible worlds and strong systems can survive average stories, and if everything we've seen in all of the trailers, boss fights, and feature overviews is as promised, then Crimson Desert does not need its story to be great. It is already a masterpiece waiting to be played.